Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I just started the carnivore a couple of weeks ago. I still eat a few vegetables, but um, it's I'm more interested now in physiological health when
Yeah.
before it was all about enlightenment.
Yeah.
So making the brain healthy physically is what I'm interested in now.
Yeah, the same here.
Yeah.
Mm.
And since starting to eat this way, a lot of energy here. There's much more energy. And also there is a combination, I'm going out more in the woods, looking at the sun. So it's like, whoa, it's explosion of energy. So I have to run now. I don't know what to do with that.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did the carnivore diet before, but I kind of fell off the wagon. So I was eating a lot of sardines and eggs and just any kind of meat. And I was like a completely different person. Like my hair stopped falling out. My eyes were like bright and I only needed like 4 hours of sleep a night. I was like it felt like a superhero or something.
Yeah.
And just have to get back into it.
Mm.
And you have to, you can go graduate, you don't have to do. Here, I don't like just jumping in the cold shower, I like to go slowly and test and to see.
Mm.
So you try, you do 1 week, and then you can, drop a few things, and then you can see how it feels. So here, there's more preference of just like going slowly into the cold shower.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm gonna make Era proud.
Hmm. All right. Nice to meet you, Gregory.
Yeah, I feel like we have met, but not really, not formally. Have
No,
you?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And it's funny because every time when you were speaking here was like, yeah, it was it's really
Yeah.
resonating.
Yeah. Same here. Same here when I read your posts and or watch you speak and same thing. It resonates.
So funny.
Yeah.
And it's exactly with Leela also. When Leela speaks, it's like, yeah, it's like it's talking so loud and you just like, wow, you could just want to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I say, why not, just to gather together and celebrate.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a big smile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
it really does feel like there's nothing to say in a way, but there's that sort of innocent excitedness too that wants to express.
Mm. Yeah.
So apparently,
exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
there's no stopping that when it seems to want to speak and then it just starts speaking, just starts happening. There's no
Hmm.
stopping it.
Yeah.
And the same here. It's like when we say, well, let's talk, I have I have no clue what's gonna come up because I
Yeah.
have nothing like Gregory, like you said, we have nothing special to say. uh, really, but there is this joy and just like birds, you just want to make beep, beep, just like say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's always that stillness or whatever word you want to give it. Um it feels like it's always sort of available to go and rest there and it feels like there's a pristineness no matter what's going on. That's always available. Just seeing like, oh, this is just what seems to be happening and um that can be focused on or this pristineness can also be focused on. So it's comforting in a way, I think, to always have that emptiness available. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems a lot of that, at least from here, it would seem like there was a big search for that, always looking for some kind of special knowing that would set me free. It would make it all make sense or make discomfort go away.
Mm.
There's always something like that. So there's always seeking in the
Mm.
comfort of knowing. And it was always never really looking at the unknowing, never looking at the knowing itself. It was just chasing after the projections of knowing, the known and the knower and what it has to do, or what the known has to do with the knower,
Mm.
and then trying to resituate and resolve all that, and thinking that you're there. And then it seems like everything's going wonderful, and then something comes along and seems to throw a monkey wrench in it, and then you're like, what happened? But it's still this. And so it's the knowing that would always sit there and say, no, I know it's not this.
Mm.
But that's this too.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's where it gets kind of confusing. But the confusion is this: there's not really any confusion really there.
Yeah.
You just look. It seems like it's there because the projection is believed, but as soon as you're looking at it, then it just kind of unravels. It's not there.
Yeah.
I, I can see it like two kids playing, and arguing. It
Yeah,
feels like that,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, concepts seem to create conflicts.
Yeah. But it's very playful.
Yeah,
It's very playful. It can be heavy, right? But it's
Yeah.
even in the heaviness, it's playful.
yeah. That's
It's
what.
like a game. The
Yeah.
heaviness and everything of what's coming out, the arguments and everything. It's almost like a funny game, of the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. It can be very heavy. So this isn't like avoiding anything, you know. It's sort of just like I, I would describe it as maybe entering into the fullness of this in a way. Um, but yeah, it's hard to speak about without it sounding like some glorious thing that I will attain or achieve. Um, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was definitely looking to achieve something for many, many years. It seemed. It just was endless, and I kept thinking I landed somewhere every time. It went from religion to actually even before religion, it was in the self-help stuff.
Hmm.
Or trying to even going to therapy and stuff like that. Even though there wasn't too much of an okayness with that back then, but a lot of people would try to put me into therapy, and there was a sensation. It was the sense like this isn't it. That it was always something else. It was always never this is it.
Yeah.
It was always something else to go gain, something else to make it right.
Wow. Yeah, that's so familiar, and it seems just like human nature, like um because we have this imagination, so we can imagine something better.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember even as a child being very much in love with the imagination, loving that part of the imagination, being able to play with that, knowing it was imagination. And then also not seeing the aspect of everything else that was imagination that was imagined to not be imagination.
Yeah.
uh, it was imagined to be real, no, that's real, or imagined to be unreal. Well, it's not real.
Yeah.
But these are just thoughts that are coming up, and every single thought is an image, right? I mean, it's a very ephemeral image. It just
Mm.
doesn't even have any lasting power at all. I mean, it's if you try to pin it down to see how long it lasts to measure it, and it's already gone.
Yeah.
uh, so it's immeasurable, which is pretty awesome. Um, because we want to measure everything, but there's just nothing there to grab onto to measure it and to get to know it, and but yet knowing seems to happen, but the knowing is just a flash in the pan. It's not. It doesn't stick. It doesn't last.
Mm.
That's beautiful in that sense, but it's not so beautiful when you're trying to pin it down, when you think
Yeah.
you have to pin it down.
Exactly.
That's where the heaviness starts coming in. Yeah,
I
The
like,
need to grab it.
yeah, to grab a hold of it and say it's
Yeah.
mine. I know it now. And
Because the conceptual way of learning, it sees things.
yeah,
So it wants to it create things in the imaginary world as objects, and reality become imaginary object, like solidified.
yeah,
So it's become in the imaginary become like solid. So it's become like a reality. It feels solid because the body reacts. It feels real, like in a dream. It feels like everything the body reacts to this as a solid thing. But it's just imaginary feeling as solid. Uh,
yeah. I think
yeah.
it's a survival mechanism that's practical. Like when you're hungry, you need to go get food, right? That kind of thing. So we imagine there's food, and how I'm going to get it and how I'm going to make it delicious, and it works for that sort of imagination in a practical way, but it seems like it just like runs amok and it can become completely neurotic. Um, Especially for the people who have that existential angst, which is normal. That's everybody, but it seems to be for seekers. It's incessant, you know.
Yeah.
It's a great program that got wild, crazy wild.
Yeah. It's beautiful because that's part of it is I mean that's what this is. This is wild. It's absolutely wild and free. And it's a little scary when it's wild and free. So then we want to pin it down. We want to know it. We think that knowing's going to save us. At least it seemed like here. Like knowing was going to save me from knowing was going to set me free and it's also going to save me because the that came from the idea of like if I put my hand in the fire, it burns. So I know that. As long as I know that, I'm not going to put my hand back in the fire again. So I feel safe with that knowing. But
Yeah,
it's really not the knowing. Even without that knowing there's a good chance I'm not going to put my hand back in the fire. I don't need the knowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is about, it's hard to describe, but I felt like there had to be a little bit of a bravery to go into that really open, like without making conclusions. Um, it is scary. It can be. It can also be quite disappointing, to see that I can't have this thing because that's just a thought. What thing am I looking for?
Yeah. And that's another funny thing about it. Is like there's no fear at all in the unknowable. You can if it's unknowable, there's no fear to know. So the fear is only in the it's always in the knowing.
Hmm.
So there's you can't fear what's unknowable because it's unknowable. You can't have any fear for that. There's no fear in the unknowable, but there's
It,
definitely fear in the knowing.
it's existing only on the knowing. So if it needs the knowing to exist,
Yeah,
this system,
yeah.
it
They
needs.
can't have
If they
one
don't
without the
know what they're gonna have, it needs knowing to having something, you know.
yeah,
So if there's no knowing, if I cannot come with something, I have nothing, and then it's the body is freaking out. Like, how can I live without the knowing? How it's possible? And then there is kind of a stress, the body gets stressed because yeah, I'm living on the knowing. I need the knowing to survive. Uh, and what is the amazement that it's just an illusion. It doesn't need to grab because they are not there, the knowing. It's just an idea that it needs the knowing. It needs the knowing. And then when you see it's like nothing to grab there, even the knowing, there's nothing to grab, and everything can run by itself, very easily.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like everything relax. It's like an animal, when you see the animals, they don't know anything and everything is done, everything is running, they know when to hunt, when not to hunt, keep the key, the babies. It's done so beautifully. It's running by itself.
yeah.
So,
It would seem like even watching a house cat, even watching a house cat go about its business and doing it, it seems like to know what it needs to know in the very moment that it's knowing something, but it's not hanging on to any knowledge. It's not seeking out any knowledge. It doesn't, oh, if I need to know this thing so it doesn't harm me anymore. They don't care nothing about that. They're just free. They're just free as far as it's just life living. It's not it doesn't have to go through anything. It has full the cat might not look like it doesn't trust life because something might spook it or something, but it doesn't know what anything is. So, of course, it's going to stop and look at what the sound was, you know. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's not trying to get rid of knowing. It's not trying to attain knowing. It's not depending on knowing, but knowing's happening.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so intelligent inherently. Like
Yeah.
we don't have to beat our heart or anything like that. It's all
Mhm.
happening effortlessly. It's just an assumption that claims, which is part of this nature, and I think it's very practical, but it can just naturally seem to cause confusion when we believe that it's me, that, I am doing this, thinking this.
Yeah. And this is a play too. Nothing wrong with that. When it's ongoing, it's ongoing.
Mhm.
And this is was always wanted to say, we're talking about when we're seeking was happening, that it could, I could not seek, here could not seek. It was perfectly done, the seeking and the recognition perfectly done that nobody did it. It was just happening. And even now saying like nothing really special, it's not something like it's not an event, nothing really special is happening. So even when if it's very strong seeking, that's perfect. It's perfection by itself. So it was here. There's always a need, like to say, if you're seeking, this is perfect. This is it by itself, expressing so nicely. So
Yeah.
just relax into this.
But if you are seeking and somebody told you to relax, you're probably not going to relax.
Yeah. So whatever, if
Mm.
you hear it or not. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you're sitting there seeking, nothing's gonna make that stop. It's already started. It's already happening and there's not a you that started it. But then you might
yeah,
hear that you think yourself as an individual, and you think, oh, well, then I have to stop seeking, or I have to stop knowing. I have to get rid of this knowing now. And that's the neurosis that comes up with that.
yeah,
Then and it turns into a me that has to do something, and it can because it starts to feel very heavy, and it doesn't feel very good. But it's okay that it doesn't feel very good. All that's being felt is just what's being felt there. It doesn't have to. Nothing has to be done about that feeling. It just has to be felt because that's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much more simple than we suspect. It's prior to effort. Yeah, effort is like a pseudo imagined thing. It's not it's not an actual thing. So it's beautiful when we start to see the body do things automatically and we're like, "Oh, I never noticed that it's doing itself." It can be freaky.
Yeah.
Mm. But I feel like this all sort of acclimates and goes into a regular, ordinary, everyday life. There can be selfing that comes in and goes away. It's just like an energetic flow that can feel like selfing, but there's never a self. So that's just an energetic expression that is freely coming and going.
But
exactly.
It feels like for me anyway.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
the knowing's like that too. It's just anything that seems to be known. That's just another projection, I who knows it and all that. But as soon as there's that like a turning around to look at the knowing itself, it's like the knowing doesn't want to be looked at. It doesn't want, it's like almost insecure.
Mhm.
And it doesn't want that insecurity to be seen because it feels so secure. So, but in turning around and looking at the knowing instead of just it can project whatever it wants to project and just like staring at that no, that at the knowing itself, then it starts to become kind of clear that it doesn't know anything. It is the unknowable, and then it starts to like, wait a second, this is the unknowable.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
this
so
is the
funny.
unknowable happening.
It's so ironic and funny.
Uh,
it's a strong illusion. Come on, it is strong, when it's ongoing, and it comes with a lot of structures of behavior and doing, and the body is reacting to that, and like a universe is creating around that when it's very strongly ongoing.
yeah, very vast universe.
Mm.
Quite convincing.
Yeah. Maybe this is why they say like the Wizard of Oz, it looks big and there is like a big universe and everything created. And then when it's seen, it's like a little boy, just playing.
Yeah.
The great and powerful knowing is the odd. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it starts to seem a little bit more innocent because there's no dependency on it anymore.
Yeah.
It's more of a questioning and even that it seems to happen naturally. It's not something that you're doing like a
Mhm.
self-inquiry or something like that. It's just that those questions kind of happen naturally. Like, wait a second,
Mm.
I was so sure about what this is. Now now there's just this openness and this curiosity. I don't know what this is.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, the path seemed so perfect. Everything that happened, like the spiritual bypassing needed to happen in order to see, like, oh, um, I'm trying not to feel, you know. Uh, it just seems so effortless
Yeah.
to get to this, seeing
Resistance.
that it's just this, basically. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. There's all that resistance, like to not look.
oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I mean, of course, it makes sense. Wow.
It's very wild for the system, the emotions, for the human system, for this no, the knower. It doesn't want to feel, it doesn't want all these feelings and conflicts and all this. It just want to know things, but when there is this emotional system coming up, n- there's not knowing there. And this is why it's get protect very, this protection and trying to avoid and trying not to accept there is this explosion of feelings and sensation and everything. So, and trying to analyze now, about why I feel this way and why that, and creating all these stories. So it's like become like a big self mechanism of understanding what's going on in this system. And then it can go on and on and on, like, the rabbit hole and everything.
Mhm. Yeah, it
And
seems
we
to,
just,
I was just gonna say it seems to perpetuate itself.
yeah. And then when this stop now and this try, when this stops trying to understand what's going on here and what's happening, so it's just a flow of a lot of sensations. Sometimes they are not so, doesn't feel so great, because this is it. But I like what you said also, Gregory. You explained that it comes and go, it comes, it's express and just go and
Yeah.
just pass.
Just a flash in the pan. It's just, and yet this is always this. So like
Mhm.
this is not this itself is not a flash in the pan. It's just everything it appears to be is just a flash in the pan because the second you try to grab a hold of it, just get to know it and keep it around, it's already gone. And then
Yeah.
you're stuck with just the imagination, and the imagination's just running. And it seems like the imagination is what's real and what's solid and um
Yeah.
but there is nothing solid. There's just everything else that we think of that we tap on, we hit, we say that's solid is just another idea. Another idea from that's saying that it knows this to be solid. So what is this? Well, I don't even like calling it a mystery because it seems to seem like that I know it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, that's fine. You can call it a mystery because it kind of seems like that. It's not really knowable, and yet it seems knowable in the instant that it's happening. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it can
Mhm.
seem like it becomes a conflict as soon as you stand on it and say, no, this is definitely what I know is happening, and then you're going to have a host of whatever resistance coming towards that to try to knock it down,
Yeah.
try to knock down what seems to be standing, which nothing is standing. It's just a free flow of everything.
Yeah.
No.
And nothing says resistance shouldn't be here. Yeah.
Right, right. The resistance doesn't feel pretty. It doesn't feel, but who says it's supposed to? Who says it's supposed to feel any other way than it does?
Yeah.
I mean, where's the comparison happening that says it's supposed to be anything other than what it is?
Right.
Other than it being imaginary, but then
Right.
that's what's actually appearing.
Exactly.
Oh,
And even the resistance, it's not a me, because we think like the me is the contraction or resistance. It's not personal. Resistance is not a me or personal to anybody. It's
Mhm.
just resistance coming up. So you cannot even attribute resistance as a personal. I individual that lives there and resists life, or there is a me, a special solid me that resists something and doesn't accept, because there's nothing there. There's no separate me that sitting here and just like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, that's a very subtle thing that we don't really hear until we finally hear it. There was never a separate entity here or anywhere. So what does that tell you? Anything can arise, and
Yeah, and,
it doesn't mean anything.
yeah. And like you're saying, it's not personal. The resistance isn't personal, and it's also not an entity that's battling you. It's not something that's popping up that's making something hard for you.
No,
No, it's just hard. It just feels hard. That's just how it feels. And if you just feel that, if you just shut all that down, just shut the story down as if there was a you to shut it down, but you can understand what that means. Just not listen to
Mhm.
the story and just feel what's there.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can sound like we're saying to do something, but we're just saying like
What's happening?
this seems to be a pattern, you know.
Yeah.
It's like science. We can't say what reality is, but we can say how it sort of seems to behave, you know.
Yeah, it's no, it's an observation. It's really like science, like you say. It's reporting. It seems to be like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I can see when things coming up, strong emotions about something, like there is conditionings and just it's even not even thought about it, just conditioning. There is situation, and then there is certain understanding, and right away there is like this strong feeling or rejection or fear coming up. And and I can see also that the story will just start to build and try to explain this happened because of that, and I should do this. And it just happening at the same time, everything, boom, 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 boom. And then there is something saying, don't go with the story. Just stay, there is even this voice saying, just stay with it.
Mhm.
Just what's ever feeling here. Don't go with this bullshit. There is something saying, don't go with this bullshit. It's a rabbit hole, like even that saying there is a voice saying that. And
Yeah.
then just staying with what's happening, and then it's beautifully appearing, expressing, and then boom, going away, the way it came. And it's not annoying. I cannot even call it annoying. It's just observation. Uh,
Yeah.
by nothing, because how I don't know how it can be observed. Like there's no knowing or even somebody that observed that,
Right.
so this
Right.
is the craziness of that.
Yeah. There's not even a knowing of a distance for there to be like
No,
to be observed
exactly.
and there to be an observer. It's just what's happening. And that's
Mhm.
how it feels even before the thoughts even come and try to describe it and divide it up into that, being
Yeah,
into the story. And then the story seems solid. The story really seems like it's really there. And then you're holding on to it like a memory, the story like a memory then. And it seems like you're carrying it with you all through every circumstance. And that's not ever really happening.
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what it's just that's where it comes into seeming mysterious because it seems like it does do that, but it's just it's not really happening like that. It's just whatever's happening is happening.
Yeah.
And like you said, like you called it a report. It's just like a very innocent report. It's like going outside and noticing it's cold out. And so what are you gonna do?
yeah.
You put a jacket on.
It's so clear. It
Yeah,
just like boom.
Mhm.
it's not serious. It's just so free flowing, just ordinary.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
free, so wild and free, and
yeah.
it's
No,
so intimate. It's like there's no time or even space for anything to be done. It's
Yeah,
two already.
just full on already. Yeah.
Mm. It can be very surreal at moments. We're just like, whoa, what the hell?
Yeah.
The hell is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like anytime that you think like it's you get fixed on, oh, this is the way it is, then what you say it isn't seems to just appear. You're like all of a sudden, wait a second, I thought I just said that doesn't happen, and here it is happening.
Yeah,
Uh,
it really is fascinating to watch from an impersonal place.
yeah,
And I feel like, at least for me, there's compassion when it wasn't possible before, for this person, others. it makes sense why we are the way we are, seem to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is compassion to this character, and at the same time, it's expressing the same for any other character. It's not personal. So even there is compassion to the way this character with her, with the default and the way it's expressing here that not sometimes it's not, not liking it even, the way it will express or but it's beautiful the way, there is this compassion of whatever comes up and there's not question even anymore if liking it or not liking it. It's just like expressing very freely the way the character or here, that was before it was the self-rejection, this self don't, of
Yeah.
behavior should be behave this way or that way. So all this crumbled, and then there were just like boom, boom, and there is learning. The character can improve himself if it's seeing that there is something going on, not really like that. It can be improved, so there is improvement, but very naturally. It's not because of rejection something. It's curiosity. It's, oh, I can do this better or that better.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a flow. Feeling as a flow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like last week there was working on the vehicle and working on the car, not even knowing what was happening, so had to look it up, and then there was all of a sudden the knowing of how to go about and do and change this part, and all of a sudden the part got changed. But
Yeah.
but it was very natural, very just it wasn't like this extraordinary feat that had to be done or anything. It was just something that was happening. It was
Mhm.
just, hey, this is just what's happening. This is what needs to be done, in order to take this part off and replace it. But it wasn't like in need. It wasn't so in need that it had to be absolute. If this is not done, then the whole world's gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
But that's how it is with the selfing. The selfing is constantly trying to improve itself to the point to where it feels like everything's collapsing at times. And maybe the car goes out, and now your job's on the line because you can't get to work because you work an hour away. And there's no way to replace the vehicle. And that might start feeling like, oh, I got to do something, and maybe something happens to that to where, a car is replaced or something, or maybe it's not. Maybe the job is to be lost.
Mhm.
Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's still this, no matter what. And
Yeah.
that's the scary part. That can be very scary because you want to know, well, what's ahead.
yeah.
I don't know what life's without a job. What's that like? What's going to happen there? All these things will come up. All these different type of thoughts will come. But there's just feelings there. There's just the story's trying to describe the feelings of what's happening, and then it wants to escape those feelings because it gets scary.
Yeah.
But if you just sit there and feel it, then that fearful feeling, wherever it's felt, just feel that wherever it's felt. Just fully, just let that be what it is, and you'll see that. I mean, there's not really nothing there to fear. We fear feeling,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is odd. We fear feeling. I mean, what's there to be scared about feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're innocent. We prefer what we prefer. We don't like feeling anxiety and things like that. I mean, it's understandable.
Mhm.
Um, but we
Yeah.
can handle fully feeling. It's not going to kill us, it's just energy.
Yeah.
It's just
And
what's happening.
yeah, I think society really doesn't help. You know, we're taught to, suppress what's arising and not cry or stuff like that in school and with our families and even in religion, um, to be a certain way. And I think it just naturally just sort of gets embedded and we're conditioned with it. Um, and the ideas of right and wrong, can be very deep. Um, and you can think you've seen through, so to say, this idea of right and wrong, and then later you can be like, oh my gosh, like really there's no right and wrong. And that can sort of deepen and um yeah, it just turns into all just preferences, really. Feels like for me.
Yeah.
It's
Wildly
almost
expressing.
it feels like it's based because we can see each other. it's based on the look, how it looks. So it creates like a system of say, I don't want this to look this way or that way, and then all this restriction. Because when it's coming, if we could not look at each other in a way, and it would just come up naturally. So there is not even an image how it will look, uh, because we see when maybe a parent see a child cry and it doesn't look good, and there is a lot of ideas about it, and it just says stop doing that because it doesn't look for the looker, it doesn't look good, so it's just stopping it there. So and then it will say to itself, I should stop it like that because it looks bad over there. So it's just like mirrors, like playing with mirrors of
Yeah.
how things should be or look. But if you just if you don't see it for the outside, for the visual, they all come. You don't know what's coming up. You don't know how it will look. You don't know. You just we creating images with others, and then we say, I want, learning not to do this or not to do that, and then restricting the whole system. So when it's in the immediacy, there is nothing there in the immediate reaction. If you don't look at it, there is not seeing outside. You don't know how it looks. You don't know how. So we just express without thinking.
Yeah. It becomes like a wild animal. It
Yeah.
can feel that way. Mm.
Uh,
You have to keep up appearances, seem like I'm strong. I have my shit together.
It's
Pretty
really
exhausting.
appearances. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily change. I mean, we all always have that. We hold ourselves a certain way in public places, and
Oh,
at least speaking
I
for
still
me,
say I'm sorry. Still say I'm sorry if I bump into somebody. It
yeah,
wasn't intentional or anything like that. It wasn't me doing it. It's just what was happening, and then the natural response is, I'm sorry.
of course, yeah. Even if you don't mean it.
And even more, there's more love now. Yeah, you want to keep this body well. I like to arrange my hair. It's not like you, you just love it more. Oh, it's nice. I will make my hair like this or like that. So it just it's a play. It's beautiful.
Like you said earlier, compassion. It just seems to be all compassion for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even for the character, even for the completely made up character, there's compassion for that,
Yeah.
especially because we all seem to have lived there, right? We all seem to have this character. We all lived as a character or whatever that means. So, um, so you have this like you naturally have it. It's not something you have to go attain or anything. That you just have this compassion for anybody that's struggling with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something very beautiful in suffering because you then know when you notice it in somebody else, you know what they're going through, and
Intimately. Yeah.
yeah. And that's like gold, and you can't have that without suffering. So to question suffering and say I shouldn't be suffering, well, can you really know that? You know,
Yeah.
to quote Byron Katie. Mm. That was one of my main inquiry questions. It was just constant while I was seeking was is that true? You know? And if there's it seems like if there's openness, um maybe some brutal honesty and um you can see no, it's never true. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, even the truth seems to just float on by. Oh, that's true. There it goes.
Yeah, you stop knowing what true means. Like it.
Yeah, there's no more of a big fight, no more an erotic fight. It can begin a conflict between, seeking what's true and what's untrue.
Yeah, it just becomes what does that even mean?
Yeah. And then someone will come up and say, well, that's true. And then you'll be like, yeah, it is true. It's okay. And then
Yeah.
it goes on. And then someone else comes up, well, that's not really true. And I agree with you. It's not really true.
Mhm. Yeah, language is just a very practical expression to refer to you and I, this and that. And Of course, it isn't telling the truth, but in a way, it is. We need it to communicate and function
Mhm.
in this dream.
Yeah, something can seem true in the moment that it just seems true in that moment. And then later on, it might just seem completely untrue. I've had that happen many times. So where something seems so true, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at it again, and I can't no longer look at it as it's true anymore because it looks so untrue. And then I let it go. And then after it seems to be let go, someone else will come along and start talking about something. I can't help but to agree with them. They say something, hey, that's true. And I'm like, yeah, it is true. At least in this moment, it's true. So it can
Yeah.
change at any time because it's always this anyway. So
Yeah, all truth is relative.
it's all relative. So and then there's nothing that's really relative. So
Right, there you go. And then you're like, what the hell are we talking about?
freedom apparently.
Mhm.
I recall it like there is no fundamental need of truth, you know.
Yeah,
It's always like the one that really want to prove there is to find the truth, to find the meaning, to find the purpose, this fundamental need that stops. And then there is just can be something true and false, but there is no like proving it, um, justifying it. There's no mission there anymore. So this is why it's very light. You can say, yeah, that's true, that's wrong, but they're very light.
yeah, it's very light. Like you just said, very, very light. Yeah, carefree almost. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
Just
almost like medium, like paint. You can't get it wrong. Like it's just an expression.
yeah,
Empty.
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So like paint on the canvas. These words are just sounds.
Yeah.
And if I really look at these words, they don't mean anything. They don't have to mean anything at all. If I get really close to them, they don't have any meaning to them. They don't have any meaningless to them. They're just sounds.
Yeah.
Not even that, because then I get close to what a sound is, and then that disappears. It's just this, and it's very beautiful as far as letting those things come in even that close anyway, because we love to keep things at a distance, right? Especially if it's untrue.
Mm-hmm.
If it's untrue or it's not real or something like that, then there's this big pushing away against it. Like stop bringing it up.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's okay to bring up because it's still actually this, and that's what's not being seen.
Yeah.
Hmm. So when this is not seen as this, then there's a problem.
Yeah, it can certainly seem that way.
No.
Oh, this must not be it. Yeah.
This is not it. I got to get rid of it. I don't know why it's here.
So the question is, what do you mean it's not it? Like, what do you look at? What's your idea about it? First, check what's your idea about it, and then say what is it?
Exactly. Get
Mhm.
closer to that it. Get real close to it. Get very intimate,
Yeah.
and then see if it's still there. See if and it is still there.
Because if you say it's not it, you have an idea what is it. So check what is the idea first, and then we see if it's that. Because you cannot point to nowhere
Yeah.
unless you have certain idea about what it is.
Yeah. I think that's why Adyashanti would ask, what do you want? You know, because we always refer to this or it or not it. And I don't think we really stop and say, what is it actually that am trying to avoid or reach and we can go into it and ask sort of what is that made of, you know, and investigate it on a meta level where you're investigating with all your senses, not just ideas, trying to figure it out and strategize.
Yeah,
Mm.
like you just said, all everything with everything. Just yeah, everything's there. You're not trying to make it known or make it felt or anything like that. It's curious. It's just a wide open curiosity into what is this really? What is this it? I
Hmm.
have an idea of what's my it.
Yeah, it's an open curiosity.
Yeah.
Feels so free when it's open like that too. Even when that's still there, even when with something there that seems to be troubling, when that wide open curiosity seems to open up to it, then it starts to become okay. Even though it doesn't, even the not okayness starts to become okay.
Yeah, because there's not sort of a reifying of something that you're placing in that space, but just what is there, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So it's like an unmanufactured obviousness.
Yeah,
I would call it like being an adventure all the time. It's become an adventure,
yeah,
curiosity, adventure. And it's funny because like the need to go find adventure just disappeared. It feels like everything is it's a new adventure. Everything that comes up all the time is a new adventure. So even here, less traveling, less wanting to travel, less wanting, but it's not because everything is like surprising all the time. So it's funny that
Yeah.
even
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I could say that was definitely there as a child in childhood, and so was imagination and that wide open curiosity about it. I didn't know anything, and everything was so fascinating, and everything, like you said, was an adventure. It was always an adventure. Like every moment of the day was an adventure. Everyone else sitting around bored. I'm over there throwing bologna on the window, peeling it off and eating.
Yeah.
Wonderful that is, you know. Oh, you think bologna sticks on a window.
Yeah,
Uh,
when you're a little kid and you haven't really fully um identified with the
uh,
name and the body and all story. I was about 10 years old when I started being very, self-conscious. I don't know if I was a late bloomer or what, but that's when it became really obvious to me that, um,
well,
oh,
it
people can see me.
seemed to happen here pretty young. I was about around 6 years old when innocence seemed to fade, and it faded really quickly. So
same. Yeah.
Mhm.
I seen something very tragic happen, and it caused a lot of trauma, and I carried that trauma for many years, and that trauma would come up again and again, but through different ways and different things that were also traumatic and more traumatic experiences. So it was, and then trying to escape all that, trying to make sure that trying to make sure everything was in the right place so that trauma wouldn't happen, trying to
Yeah.
anticipate it.
Right.
And that can be very neurotic, and that's what you would I would call that whole self consciousness is because I'm looking at do I got everything set in place, or is there an opening here for trauma to happen? You know, because if the trauma is going to happen, I'm not on my toes.
Right.
You know,
Hmm.
and it was a big fight with that with the trauma. It was a big fight. It felt like a fight with life, which is weird, but because this is all life, but
Yeah.
it was a fight with life all the time. It was constantly, and death was mixed into that. So it was not just it was a fight with life and death, trying to avoid death and keep life going. But at the same time, there's also a hatred for everything that was going on that it was called trauma in life. Didn't want that happening. So to me, that would feel like death, allowing death to happen. So it was very confusing to say the least. Um, because I didn't know what to do. So it brought all that seeking in there. I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know how, being a young child, I didn't know how to express to my family or my parents, the ones that were closest to me, trying to help me with the night terrors and all that stuff after that, and not knowing how to express that. And they didn't have trauma counselors on the scene like they do today. You know, something happens and they bring trauma counselors to the scene to talk to witnesses. There was none of that back then. So they didn't know how to handle that kind of trauma with such a child with the child either, and so it felt very helpless, and so there was this running away from anything that ever felt helpless. So now there's like this onslaught of helplessness happening, and it's just being felt.
Yeah.
I'm not running away from it anymore. It's just it's okay, it's happening. Of course there's something here that wants to escape that, and that's just what's part of what's happening. There's no escape. Thankfully there's no escape, and I can actually say that now that there's thankfully there really is no escape, because there was a time that there has to be an escape, there has to be something, a way out of this, because I'm looking at others and they seem to have the realization too, but they're happy. But here it would feel like, well, that question started coming into, well, what's happiness then? What's unhappiness?
Right.
You know, they're one and the same thing, just with two different labels. I've given it two different names, and I give it a whole different character. I've given it an identity. This is what happiness looks like, and this is what unhappiness looks like. So now they're entities. but they're not really ever entities. It's just when I look closer at that, when I start looking closer at the unhappiness of what's there, all I find is feelings. That's it.
Yeah.
Just an energy. That's all I'm feeling is an energy, and it comes and it goes. It's not constant. So it's not like constant unhappiness. And from it might feel like there's 20 minutes of unhappiness, and then all of a sudden somebody comes and says something funny, and then there's just laughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard to say that's not happiness, and then it might go back and it starts to change and starts to seem kind of dull. It's not as happy anymore, and there's these thoughts happening, and then the thoughts are being taken as somewhat serious, and then there's a feeling, and then it's like, wait a second, there's going back. Forget the story, go back to the feeling, and there's just nothing but a feeling there. The story's just trying to trying to explain what's there to the best of its ability, which isn't much. So
Yeah.
it's very innocent in how it tries to protect, and it doesn't. It's not really trying to cause trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like it's trying to help. It's a survival mechanism. Um, yeah. You described that really
Doing the
well.
best you can. It's doing the best you can at the time,
Yeah,
it's very innocent. It's trying to protect, like there is a dragon or monster that's gonna come, and you're
yeah.
trying to check, when what situation will make it come, that this
Mhm.
triggers here, and then, watching over. And
I
but
don't want to
it's
leave.
tiring after a while. The system also, it gets tired
It
because
gets
it's
very tiring.
predictable. It's like you're going against the river and you try to push, 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 and it's not possible.
All right.
Yeah, it's trying to negotiate with life to be worthy of some safety or peace.
Mm.
And there is no
No.
inherent safety.
Yeah, it's like looking for the dragon, and I go, well, if I don't leave food out for the dragon, it makes it a little harder for the dragon to show up. But go ahead, just not don't throw any food out there and let the dragon show up anyway.
Yeah.
Might as well just call it out, man. Because if it's over there lurking and wants to come out, then let it come out. Go ahead, let the dragon come out. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it feel it. It's not saying, oh, you got to go make conditions to be this certain way so you can feel real. It's the feeling that you're trying to avoid. It's not the story or anything else. It's not even the circumstances. Once you see, it's just the feeling because you're worried about you're going to feel a certain circumstance happen. You're worried that you're going to have to feel things you really don't want to feel. So I mean, they're right there to tell you right there. It's the feeling that you're fearing.
And we also put heavy meaning on top of that feeling. So if
Yeah,
I
a lot
feel
of
shame, then that means there's something wrong with me, something bad here, which is sort of like a snowball effect. You feel more shame, more guilt, or whatever it is, anger, fear.
yeah.
So it almost feels like if you can just feel that initial full on whatever it is, frustration or something like that, uh, it's like an open water hose, it moves through quickly and there's no resistance to that. I mean there can be, but usually it's just like you become frustration itself in that moment and
Full on. Yeah,
yeah, and that feels like love because it's allowed. Of course it would do that, right? It's of
yeah.
course it would feel that way.
Mm. We're a wonderful mess. It's a beautiful mess.
Chaotic, beautiful,
Absolutely.
chaotic.
Hmm.
Absolutely. It's like when you see someone who's disabled in a way, and if you have empathy, you have mixed feelings, you feel bad for them, and then you also can see how inspiring they are, how happy they are, and we can feel all these things for other people, but it's hard to feel it to yourself, um, and have that same compassion and inspiration because we think that we are this person, and that we are responsible. We are doing this, and that claiming, and that's the difference. That's the only
Yeah.
difference.
The same rage will come here, it's the same rage will come there and over there.
Mm.
And rage is rage or sadness or rejection. There is no fault or reason or somebody's doing, it's not personal. Um,
Mm.
so, and each one will deal with this differently. Some, here maybe it will express and go away. Over there, maybe it will stay a few days, and then there's gonna be blame and gonna be shame. Who knows? And but it's still not personal, and you cannot take responsibility also on other one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was a one that I went through for quite a while was the whole responsibility thing because before it was more of a blame thing, take responsibility. And now it's way more innocent than that.
Yeah,
It's not even really, doesn't even have solidity to it, really. It's just, something just happens and it's just like, oh, I'll take responsibility for that. And yeah, this is what I'm feeling at this moment. That's all.
yeah, and there is actions can be actions. So okay, or I'm sorry, but there is no.
Right.
No,
Can,
it's innocent. It's everything is innocent, and even there is decision or not interacting. Yes, interacting. It's just a flow. There's no rules anymore about it.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's certainly not the end of what we like to call suffering.
No.
Suffering can certainly still happen,
Yeah.
and it's actually not a bad thing. It's not a sign that something bad is happening that you haven't accomplished anything. There was never anything to accomplish, so
No.
it wasn't about getting rid of suffering. It never was. So maybe more about getting closer to it than that, because instead of running away from it, you start to get instead of trying to separate from it,
Yeah.
you start to make an opening for it to get in a little bit closer, start inviting it in a way, and stop trying to cast it away and get rid of it. And it's more like, no, you're welcome. You're welcome to be here. I want to see what this is. I want to be closer to this now.
Yeah.
And it's not to get anything either. It's not about, oh, what can I get out of it? It's just tired of running from those. It
Yeah,
gets exhausting trying to run from it.
exactly. It did feel like a sort of a collapse. Um, no more energy to fight.
Yeah.
Seeing that there really is nothing but this. Right?
Yeah.
Uh, it's so funny when you can finally hear that, there's only this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, that was so simple. Like,
Yeah.
why did I make that so hard in my head?
Mhm.
Uh,
Uh,
but I would say it's the end of suffering as we knew it to be, you know,
Yeah.
there you go.
but not the end of the expression of what we used, call suffering,
Right.
and how we think it works and what it even is. But I mean, if you really watch it, it's
What has to be done about it?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you really watch it, it's not even sustained. It's just like it's kind of like things that just come up and fall just constantly.
Yeah.
Just like these words. Yeah. It flows and it goes and that's it. It's not always there. It's not always, this doesn't always feel like suffering, even though, but this always feels like this. And all
Mhm.
suffering feels like this. So you can call that a bit of a paradox.
It's like diffusion, if I have like
Uh-oh.
Oh, that was my screen.
Can you hear us? Oh, you froze for a second. Adar.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't know what did I say before.
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
said it feels like a diffusion, it's like energy coming up. It's very strong. It feels, the nervous system, everything feels, and then it's evaporating like in mist,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
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 Land like a snow. Ooh.
Yeah, I like saying brutal love because it's like I just love that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
me too.
anything can arise.
Anything.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean that does sound unconditional, so it does allow for that. So, uh,
And I don't even feel like I can claim that I am capable of unconditional love. It doesn't feel like that.
No.
It just
no,
is already the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. There's no strive. You don't have to strive for unconditional love at all. There's nothing there to strive for it. It just already is everything that it seems to be appearing.
Yeah.
No need to prove it.
No,
Like allowance. Even if there is not personal allowance, that is allowed. You can notice, allowance is. Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
which is pretty funny.
no.
Too effortless. The lazy path.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Adar, thank you for bringing us together. That was so
Oh,
spontaneous.
it was right.
Mhm.
The idea just came up. I said, "Oh, it will be so nice," and then boom, 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 boom.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been beautiful.
Lovely.
it's been a while since I've chatted with Gregory. I think you watched our chat that we've done on the channel before.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess I'll let y'all go and I'll let you know if I post it and everything. So
Okay,
Mm,
wonderful.
very lovely.
maybe we'll do it again one day.
Sure.
Yeah. Love you.
Sorry, guys.
Y'all, bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.